Okay, so good evening again and welcome to the call. For those of you who are new to the call, in a moment I'm going to give you an idea of how to participate on the call and how to listen. Now don't get scared when I say participate, because participate can be in a variety of different ways. For some of you, you may actually want to talk. You might want to share, and that is one valid way to participate. But then there's a lot of you who don't want to say a thing, and you're scared to death that you may be expected to, and there is no expectation like that, okay? During the call, I will have the call muted. At this moment, the call's open. When I say open, it simply means that if you got anything going on in the background right now, everybody can hear it. So if that's the case, you might mute your own phone, but give me a second because you may not have to. What'll happen is I'll mute everybody, and there's a specific gallery of people who will be open at all times. They know who they are, and their purpose is to have ongoing participation so that the call is never completely quiet. When it comes time for sharing, I'll let you know, and I'll open the call, and I'll let you know that it's open and it's time to share, and you just say your name, and I'll call on you, and then you'll share. So that's how it's going to go. So I want to acknowledge all of you. I want to acknowledge every person who took the time, your valuable time, to be on this call, to take on yourselves, to take on your relationships, and take it on your relationships in a big way. You know, there's not a couple on the planet, I don't believe, that wouldn't want their relationship to be the most powerful, most amazing, most spectacular partnership available. But very few, and I do mean very few, would take the time to examine and to look at yourself and your couple the way that you are tonight. You know, people are afraid. They're afraid of what they might see. They're afraid that there are things that they can't fix, and they're more interested in staying blind than dealing with the obvious. So I acknowledge you. I acknowledge you for taking on your relationships in a big way and creating an environment where your love can foster. And not only your love can foster, but that you become an example for the people around you to know that that kind of love is possible. So here's the intention of this series of calls. The intention of my series of calls is to create the possibility of true love. Love being experienced, expressed, and expanded. It's my intention that the couple become your sanctuary, a place of refuge, where you get reminded of who you really are without judgment. And that is pure love and life energy. So how you might listen to the call. First of all, I want you to know that the call is intended to be all-inclusive. What do I mean by all-inclusive? Well, there's lots of different kinds of relationships on the planet. There's a traditional relationship, which you would call a monogamous relationship between two people. But there's also asexual relationships, polygamous relationships, and open relationships. It's not my intention to leave anybody out. There are gay relationships, straight relationships, bisexual relationships. My intention, everybody's included. However, I will use a more traditional relationship as the focus during the call, so it's going to be up to you as an individual to have it adjusted for your own particular life. I'm in a traditional monogamous relationship, though it's same-sex, and that's more of how I'll speak. How you might listen to the sharing. So people are going to share on the call, and there's going to be interactions that I'll have with people. Listen for how that sharing and how those interactions might apply to your own personal situation. Give up your opinions regarding the person who's talking. And believe me, you will have opinions. You are human, right? Human beings have opinions. It's automatic. Give up your opinions regarding the person who's sharing and only deal with your own life. Don't become the listener coach. You know how you have a backseat driver sometimes? And don't you know when you're driving how that drives you crazy? Don't be the backseat driver. Listen from your own life. Listen from what might be valuable for you. And then sharing, how you share. You say your name and I'll call on you. The call will be muted the call will be muted, though I do have the gallery of people who will speak on behalf of the group. So here's how I want to start the call tonight. I want to start the call with those of you who've been on the recent calls. You may have listened to the recordings, but somehow you're involved in the conversation. I want to hear from you to start this call. I want to hear what's been opening up for you, breakthroughs, breakdowns, just anything that occurs relevant that you'd like to say as we begin tonight's call. So who'd like to do that? I'd say that would be nobody. Charlie,
I'll share, Tom.
Who is that?
This is Kelly.
Hey, Kelly.
Hi.
Oh.
Thanks. I was not on the past two calls, but I listened to both of them, and there has been something that someone shared. I don't remember who it was, that has been huge for me. And he was sharing about how he recognized that he was trying to have his relationship kind of be the substitute for God, something like that, to that level. And okay. Well, and so that made a huge difference for me in that sense of, because I recognize that that's something that I really want, is to really be able to differentiate that sense of, I call it source. For me, that source is my relationship with source, and my partner doesn't need to substitute in any way, shape, or form. And then something else that I got was how important it is for me to have the experience of co-creation, including source energy, including that type of spirituality with whoever my future partner is going to be. And I think that I didn't really get that profound breakthrough until I was, hearing everything on the calls, because I recognized that before these calls, I had been talking to, some of my girlfriends and friends about really what is it that I want in a relationship, what am I looking for, and I had been listening from what's important to them, and I almost started to brush off some of the things that were important to me. It's like I almost had this automatic listening, and then on your calls, I was able to get really present to really what I care about, and so that's what I wanted to share.
Kelly, that's awesome. So then, one of the questions I was going to ask you, but I think you pretty much answered is, what is it that you want to accomplish? And I can hear that one of the things you want to accomplish is to have clear distinction in the different kinds of love that you're able to express and where your couple or your partner fits into that equation. For many of us, we create our partner as the everything. And though it may be blissful for a moment, it is a huge responsibility to put on a human being. And a little later in the call, it'll become more clear why that becomes a devastation in a partnership, when one person has to be the everything for the other. So it's really great. Thank you so much, Kelly, for sharing. Is there anybody else?
Mm-hmm.
Charlie?
This is Rasha.
Okay, Charlie, and then Rasha.
Yes.
Charlie?
Yes. So
Go ahead.
There was I was going over my notes and the recording, and there was one line that stuck out, and it was to be authentic and real inside a relationship could look like, where can I not blame you for me being the child over here, upset like I was when I was 6 years old. And I had shared with Thomas that these images just kept surfacing. There was no conversation I had around them. But all of a sudden, I saw myself, and I was maybe 3 or 4 years old, and I had grabbed something, and all of a sudden I heard my mom say, no, baby, you can't have that. You're going to hurt yourself. And, you got to get, I probably heard that, we probably all heard that 300 or 400 times when we were young. So now I see what I made that mean is I can't have what I want because I'm going to hurt myself. And I see how that has mapped out and played out in all areas of my life, but particularly in relationships.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really great, Charlie. Thanks. I think it's brilliant. Thank you for speaking up and sharing. I appreciate it. And thank you again for being on the call. And I want to acknowledge Charlie publicly as he's the one that generated the notes from the last two calls. It is the first draft, but I sent it out to a number of you so that you would have some of the things written. So, Charlie, thanks for doing that.
Thank you,
Rasha.
Charlie.
You're welcome. Rasha, let's hear from you.
Oh, hi. So one of the things that I really got in touch with this, specifically just this last week, is like distinguishing which stage I'm in my relationship with Ed, and then by distinguishing the nature of the conversations we've been having is different. So I really get the power of distinction, which you shared since the beginning of these calls. That it's just we've been having conversations around money, and they've been really charged. That listening to the call, and then we read the notes that you've shared with us, really helped us distinguish like where we are, and the nature of our conversation has completely shifted. So I really got in touch again with the power of distinction. It provides power.
Yeah, it's really great because, the whole intention of the calls is that we create a body of words, phrases, a language, if you will, so that we can point to things in our relationships that never have quite been pointed to before. And anything that you have a body of distinctions for, you have power with. And, in my past, the way I was trained is, those people who are doctors, a doctor has a body of distinctions when it comes to working on the human body that you and I don't have. And if you're going to have somebody working on your body, you want them to have that body of distinctions, right? That gives them power with dealing with you at the physical level. And if you're taking your car to somebody to get it fixed, you don't want to take it to your hairdresser. Your hairdresser's got the body of distinctions to manage glamour and appearance and, grooming, but doesn't have the body of distinctions for getting that car up and going. So distinctions are very, very powerful. And, all of the calls, you will be getting more and more distinctions in how to relate in your couple so that you have more power, more freedom, more self-expression, more peace of mind, and that the couple becomes more relevant, not just as a partnership, but more relevant to your identity and your experience of your life overall. So thank you for saying that, Rasha. It was really, really beautiful.
Can I add one more thing?
Absolutely.
Something we both got in touch with, and it kind of goes to what you were just saying, is the personality of our couple. So we recognize, like, we have our individual personalities that we bring to the table, but we created our relationship. And but then distinguishing, like, the personality of our couple and what we want to create next, which I thought was really cool because it eased off some pressure and noise I had around in my own head.
Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah, thank you. Very, very good. One more person if you want. Okay, then we're going to move on. And at this time, you guys, I am muting everybody. And when it comes time to share, I will unmute you. All right, let's see. Okay, very good. So you'll be happy to know that nobody can hear you. So if you have any background noise going on, you don't have to worry about it. So tonight's call is specifically about being a human being. So let's just take a look at being a human being and consider that there are three very distinct bodies in being human. The first body is the physical body. And the physical body is very loud. And by loud, what I mean is that it's up front It's the thing that's seen. It's the thing that screams when you're hungry. It's the thing that requires and gets a lot of attention. There's also the spiritual body of a human being, and there's the emotional body of the human being. Those are the three very distinct bodies of a human being. These series of calls, we deal with the emotional body. But much like the physical body, so if you take a look at the physical body, don't you have to manage the well-being of your physical body?
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't you have to keep
absolutely.
it clean? That's right. You got to keep it clean. You got to deal with, though we don't like to talk about it, you got to deal with the waste of the physical body. It requires a lot of attention, and the physical body gets a lot of attention. And if you and I didn't deal with and manage the well-being of our bodies, there's a consequence. What might be a consequence of ignoring or not dealing with the physical body?
It would be poor health.
You'd be in poor health, which eventually would take you to death, yeah?
Yeah.
Yep. Right. I'm sorry. I didn't raise my hand, Thomas. Sorry about that.
No, it's quite all right. Quite all right. Thanks. So I'm going to move into, so we got a clear picture of the physical body, and we're clearly conscious of the consequence if we choose to ignore the physical body. Now I want to go into the emotional body, because you see, it's a funny thing. The emotional body gets very little examination, even though it dominates our very existence. I mean, take a look at how your emotions are in the background of everything. Everything. It's practically as loud as the physical body, but because it's not so out on the table, out in front, it gets very little examination, and plus, we don't really understand it. We have very little language to reference what's happening. And without language, just like we said earlier, without enough distinctions, a human being has no real access to do anything about it. Tonight's call, you're going to get more access. Tonight's call, you will have distinctions around the emotional body that you've never had before. And you'll have the possibility of dealing with of parts of your identity that had been in your way of experiencing love and having your relationships really work and work over time. You see, the emotional body, just like the human body, you got to manage the well-being. You got to keep it clean. And just like the physical body, as much as we don't like to talk about it, the emotional body has waste. Now, what do you figure it looks like to manage the well-being of the physical body, the emotional body? And said more distinctly, what I'm looking for is, when I talk about the waste of the emotional body, what do you think I might be talking about?
Leonard?
Upset, anger,
arguing. Leonard, go ahead.
Rackets, what Warner calls structures of interpretation that don't serve you.
So, okay, interpretations that don't serve you. Good, very good. Melody, I think I heard you speak up.
I did. I said anger.
So anger might be there. Anybody else?
Frustration.
Joanne?
Okay, very good. Consider
Upset.
that the waste of the emotional body is made up of regrets and resentments.
Mm.
The emotional body gets built up with regrets and resentment. Just look at yourself. Can't you see a lot of regret and resentment in your own life? And listen, we're not talking to this everyday, ordinary people. I'm talking to people who care about what their life looks like. I'm talking to people who deal with themselves at a much higher level than most anybody else on the street. And there's not a single person on this call that can't say or speak a regret and or resentment that's very loud right there in the forefront of your mind. Is that not true?
Absolutely.
That's true.
Regrets and resentments rule the day in most intimate, loving relationships, and it's tragic, but it's true. You let something that you regret show up loud in your relationship, and I don't care how much you love your partner, the more that you loathe yourself, the more impact it's going to have on the relationship. Now, most relationships can deal with that if they're powerful anyway. But why should they? Why should your couple get impacted just because life happens? But it does. It's tragic, and it's true. You see, you and I, we don't run fast enough. We don't generally run fast to get to somebody that we can get in communication with regarding the regrets and the resentments that are loudest in our mind. Somebody who can listen to us powerfully and disappear them so they can no longer haunt and no longer rule who you get to be in this very moment. And if you're not clear, this very moment, and I do mean right now, right where you're sitting, right where you are, this very moment is the only reality that there is. This is it. This is all that there is. Anything that's in the past is a story you tell about it. And anything in the future is a projection trying to protect yourself from things that already happened so it won't happen again. And when you can't get present, you're literally giving your life away.
Thomas?
So sometimes it takes somebody outside of your ordinary circle to get these things nipped in the bud, to get you focused on what really matters to you, to get the couple restored and get it empowered and present again. Mostly you and I get in bed with people who think the way we do. And listen, if you interact and commiserate with people who think the way you do, you're going to get more of the same results that you've always gotten. You got that?
Yes.
Not like it's a bad thing, but you got to get it. And by the way, it is one of the reasons why I do offer offline one-on-one and couples interactions. So let's just take a look at how this emotional body got developed. Even if I ask you to think way, way back, you're not going to remember the moment. But there was a time. And the only reason that you know there was a time was because somebody told you there was a time that you were a very tiny bundle of joy. And that little bundle of joy related to itself as everything and nothing. It had no distinction of itself from anything else. It was pure love and life energy, and that's all it was. And then, you know, as it starts to develop, that is, the baby starts to develop, that little bundle of joy begins to distinguish itself generally from its mother. This isn't the case for everybody, so you'll have to adjust based on how you grew up. If you didn't have your parents at that young age, then you'll have to look at who it might have been. But you distinguished yourself early on as something separate, but it was still within the family dynamic, and that's a very important thing to be present to right this minute. Because you see, as you begin to distinguish yourself separate from your mother, then you start to distinguish other elements of this family paradigm. And at some point you realize that you have to survive in this paradigm. And how does a baby or a young child survive inside the family paradigm?
Pay attention.
It's a real question.
Ask the question again.
How does a young child survive inside the family paradigm?
Melody.
Yeah, Melody.
I hid.
You hid.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, very good. That was your way of survival.
Yeah.
Ron.
Anybody else? Yeah, Ron.
Yeah, I hid also, but the way that I hid is that I got along. I played by the rules. So I learned early what were the rules.
That's right. And this is my brother Ron, and you still do that, don't you, brother?
I do, yeah.
And you're good at it. That's awesome. So if you look at it from a general point of view, how a child survives the family paradigm is by somehow pleasing the ruling adults in that pack. So you might be talking about your parents or whoever ruled the pack. Does that communicate?
Yeah.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Very good.
Yep.
So here you are, you're this little kid, and you're doing what you know to do to please the big ones in the pack. And so far, you're doing okay, and you fit in perfectly, and nobody's judging you, and you're pretty happy until something happens. And when it happens, it occurs to this little person that I'm no longer pleasing the pack. And now my survival is threatened. And there's something that happens. You know, when Charlie talked about his interaction with his mom was being great with him. Charlie, get away from that. You can't have that. It might hurt you. It was very simple. She wasn't being ugly to him, but what he made up became a deep bruise in his emotional body. And every human being at a very young age, 4, 5, 6, something happens, and that emotional body gets bruised. And in the moment that happens, you question if you're any good or not. Am I good? Am I bad? There's all these questions you never had before, and you develop for the first time a self-image. You see, before this moment, there was no self-image. How come?
You're part of the pack.
You didn't need one.
Mm-hmm.
You were connected. You were loved. As far as you knew, you were perfect. You didn't need a self-image until your perfection came into question and your survival got threatened. And so there's no human being, I'm stating this like it's a fact, and that would give me an opportunity to let you know that none of what I'm telling you is a fact. These are all possible ways of viewing the human being to get an access to a new kind of conversation. You got that?
Yes.
Right.
However, no human being's self-image is a good self-image. You realize I didn't go and look, but I should have Googled just how many books are written on how to get a better self-image. But there is no better self-image because, you see, the self-image only came into existence to remind you where you're not good enough so that you could create a projected image to compensate for it. Does that communicate?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
So now you've got, here's this little person. You know, we just don't have enough compassion for what it is to be a little person growing up around a bunch of big people. Because now this little person has two images to deal with. They're juggling a self-image that says, I'm not enough, with a projected image so that nobody finds out they're not enough, and to make sure the projected image looks the way it needs to look, Brother Ron, like following the rules, being as good as you can be, and therefore in the background never being good enough, right, bro?
That's it.
so that you can survive inside the family paradigm. So far, you guys, this is landing over there?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. So now I'm juggling these two images, and I am always at odds with myself. Can you see? I mean, I know the people on this call. I don't have anybody on the call that's less than 30 years old, I don't think. And wouldn't you say that everybody on this call can see that you've always been at some level at odds with yourself?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, right? And then you get a relationship with somebody else, and you expect that you're not ever going to be at odds with them. Is that not ridiculous? It's like the most ridiculous thing on the planet. You get at odds with this person that you're in love with, and you think something's wrong, but you've been at odds with yourself for as long as you can remember. And, you know, another thing occurred to me that had never occurred to me before. So here you have this kid who has two images, a self-image that's, quote, damaged, unquote, and a projected image to fit into the family dynamic. Well, what about these families that split? So you're in an original family. You've developed this projected image. It seems to work where you are, but now all of a sudden your parents break up. They go on and create other families, and not only do you have to project an image here to fit in here and make it work out, now you got to go to somebody else's house, even though they're your family too. But I assert, and don't know, but I would like to find out, I would assert that there's a whole other projected image that has to get developed over there so you could be what they need you to be, so you fit in and you survive that element as well. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so here you are. You're a kid. It's all working out pretty good. You got your images handled. Hello?
Oh,
Who
you can
was
hear
that?
me? Okay. It's
I
Johnny.
can barely hear you. Who is that out there?
It's Johnny.
Hey, Johnny. Yeah, I could barely hear you. You might have to either come off of your Bluetooth or yell. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just just to address that point, I didn't notice until you said it out loud, and it really became like separate, you know, from the back of my brain. But I noticed, I had my parents split, and then they got remarried, and then there's extended families. And in every situation, you had to tweak what – it's not noticeable when you're in the situation, but looking back, it's very clear how almost schizophrenic you have to be as a young person growing up to have so many different personalities to be able to fit in everywhere. And then you never really actually fit in because you're not being your authentic self.
Isn't that the truth, Johnny? Isn't that the truth? You get so far removed from who you really are that you don't even remember who you really are. So I've opened the call. All callers are now unmuted, and I want to give people an opportunity to share anything that you're seeing right now, any insights you might have, anything that's just there that you want to, you know, sometimes when you're thinking stuff and you can say it out loud, it gives you some peace, you know? So
Leonard.
anybody who'd like to share, just say your name. Yeah, Leonard, go ahead.
Yeah, Thomas, one of the things that became really apparent to me is even though you don't know something, you're still affected by it, right?
That's right.
And because we don't really see all this stuff hiding in our blind spot, like what just landed for me is we don't have a chance.
That's right.
Without ferreting this stuff out, you don't have a chance at having a relationship that works.
Isn't that the truth? And here we are. We go around, we judge each other, we make speculations about other couples, when in reality, if anybody's making it, like you really got it together and you're making it and you haven't done the kind of work we're doing, it's a freaking miracle. It's a freaking miracle. And if you're not present to the freaking miracle it is, you are not grounded in reality.
That's it. That's it.
And the thing I also want to say, Leonard, based on what you just put up, it's like the laws of the universe operate independent of our opinions, of our knowledge, right?
Okay.
It doesn't matter what you know. The laws of the universe work whether you know they're working or not.
Right.
Really beautiful. Thank you, Leonard. Somebody else?
You're welcome.
Melody.
Lauren?
Yeah, Melody, go ahead.
Well, when you were speaking about the parents, and I really realized that it wasn't so much, I didn't have to deal with the divorced parents, but I had to deal with the moving. Like every 2 years, I had to go to a different school with different people. And I realized the reason that I started hiding was because it was too hard to become a new person every time.
Oh, wow. I get it. And, for the first time, Melody, after knowing you as many years as I have, right?
Yeah.
I really get what you're saying at a level of empathy. Like I can really empathize with what you're saying. Okay, now somebody's got their car door open. You forgot that you're on open call. Thank you so much. Okay, somebody else?
Hey,
Lauren?
Lance, go ahead.
So there are a couple things. The whole piece about regret and resentment, that is my world. Like that on a daily basis is my world. And as I look at being in relationship and also like looking at a potentially a major medical crisis, I always it just wells with that resentment, resentment, but it's also towards myself as well. And so
that's right.
The other piece that you had shared is, it's like being at odds with oneself, and then also, being in relationship with someone that's also in odds with themselves, potentially.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And so it was really good just to hear that out loud. I don't really have a resolution for it, but it's
nothing to resolve. It's nothing to resolve, Lance. It's something to see, something to get. And as we move through the call, I think there will be some things that will open up. And, thank you for sharing. Really, it was really awesome because there is something I want to touch on, and that is first let me mute everybody again, you guys, and then we'll have some sharing again in a few minutes. So here we are. We're talking about these images that got created. So we're just going to take the case that there's two, even though we've looked at many others. So there's the self-image, and there's the projected image. And you may have multiple projected images, but the older you get, the more you start packaging them all up into one. And one day you get a little pissed off, and you decide, you know what, I'm just going to be me. But who the me is that you think you are isn't really you anyway, so mostly you kind of just get annoying. But that's okay, because you've got to start somewhere, right? But now you're out in the world, and you meet somebody, and you fall in love with this person. And you're like, wow, I've fallen in love. Well, I want to ask you something. Did you? Because the way I look at it, I think your projected image fell for their projected image. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
You probably don't even get a glimpse of any of the other images dancing around over there until many months into the relationship, and for some people it could be years, depending upon how authentic the individuals have trained themselves to be throughout their life. Some people have done some work on their own. Some of them did it unintentionally. Their worlds were such that to survive, they had to transform, and they didn't even know they were doing it. For others of us, we had to go and actually do a particular kind of work for that to happen. But now now you're in this relationship. There's your self-image and there's your projected image. You treat them like they don't have that, because they're perfect. And because they're perfect, of course, they don't have going on in them what you have going on in you. But in reality, they do have their self-image, and they have their projected image. So now you've got this couple with 4 dancing images. But is there only 4? No. Take the case that in addition to the 4 images that we already know about, I have an image of the couple, and he has an image of the couple. So we have now 6 images dancing around. Do you know what I'm talking about? You get it?
Yes.
And then, of course, like I said earlier, it's a
crazy making world.
It's a crazy making world. And like I said earlier, it's a freaking miracle if anybody's really making it and having it all work out. Now, it all sounds a little dismal right now, and it's not my intention to have it dismal. It's only my intention that we get present to the reality of what it is to be with another human being and to have love experienced, expressed, and expanded. And until you get all the pieces and parts, until you have the distinctions to juggle it around, I don't think there's an access. So early in your life, there was an emotional bruise, and it was the emotional bruise that gave access, gave rise to the self-image. But there have been many bruises to that emotional body over the years. Some have healed on their own. But there are some that are running very deep, you guys, and they run so deep that you believe that they are just happening in the moment. How many of you have ever heard you're never upset for the reason you think?
Yes.
Yeah, you've heard that, right? You've heard it many times in many different disciplines. You're never upset for the reason you think. You see, your bruise gets hit, and if you're in a relationship with another human being, especially somebody who loves you, they're actually only going to hit that bruise. They hit it. You don't even really know it's there because you haven't distinguished it. You then have a reaction. So if you're taking notes, I want you to write down reactions are your access to the initial bruise. Because what I want to get to, you guys, is healing. I want you to get that if you really want to be in a couple, if you really want that kind of relationship, and you should really ask yourself if it's really what you want. If it's really what you want, then that couple needs to be the place for healing. I say that the couple, the loving, intimate couple, is the possibility for healing. You see, after stage 3, and there's some of you who are new on the call and you don't know the stages, don't worry. You can go back and look at them. You can ask me for the notes. I'll send them to you, whatever you like. But all the calls are recorded, so you could go back. The second call, I went through all the different stages. But stage 3 is a critical stage. It's the stage of choice. It's a stage where there's a power struggle. There's a particular kind of friction that gets generated, and it forces the self-image and the projected image to show up. And the struggle that each person has within themselves begins to surface. And this is where you choose. You choose to become more yourself, your real self, a bigger, more powerful you, the most amazing you can be. And if you do, and this is all you do, the couple cannot help but develop into a bigger, more powerful representation and experience of the love that you both are. That's communicating?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Other in your couple, the partner, will see and experience and naturally develop too. And by the way, just because they see you and they experience and naturally develop too, there's a fine line here. And I want to point to this fine line because, you see, we live in a power struggle world. We live in a domination world. We live in somebody trying to control something or someone else all the time. And if you deal with what I'm talking about from that point of view, you will fail. Because what I'm talking about is you naturally take on being yourself. You naturally take on expressing a bigger you, and they naturally do it too. It's not like you're teaching them. you're reminding them, and perhaps they're reminding you. In the most healthy relationships, that's the way it goes. The relationship becomes like the purpose of the relationship. If you get through stage 3, and most couples get stuck there, and I'll tell you a little later how you know you're stuck there. Most get stuck there, but if you move through it, the purpose from that point on is to remind each other who you really are and without judgment. And who are you, really?
Source energy.
Okay, life energy and pure love. That's who you really are. That's how you started out. That's who you really are. You have you have moments where you can touch it.
Right.
No human being can have access to it over a long period of time, because we always fall back into the human paradigm, which is past future. So you and I live a past future life. We have to, on purpose, live a right now life, because everything around us pulls us to the past or to the future. Does that communicate? You get it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so to be right now takes somebody on purpose. And to be right now is the only time that you can experience the life energy and the pure love that you are, getting who you really are. Or, by the way, you guys, you're in stage 3, you come through it, and you won't do that for whatever reason. And the struggle of stage 3 can last as long as the relationship can stand it. But peace, fulfillment, and satisfaction will rarely, if ever, be experienced. But if you do, then stage 4 is huge for the couple. When who you are is pure love and life energy, and you know it, and you know that that's who your partner is, and your goal in life is to be somebody who can be the reflection so that that partner gets who they are, and that they become the reflection so you get who you are, then life becomes blissful. It becomes peaceful. You have fulfillment and satisfaction, and nothing that happens around you can break through that barricade. You see, pure love, does it have a problem when somebody makes a mistake?
No.
No. Does pure love need to defend itself? No.
Mm-hmm.
Does pure love cause pain and misery?
No.
No. Yet most of our relationships by design have nothing or very little to do with purifying, so that pure love can be present, so that we can recognize ourselves in each other, that we can distinguish ourselves from the herd. But instead, what mostly happens in our couples is that we domesticate each other using fear. We put out the fear of losing sex, the fear of losing intimacy, the fear of losing love. And when a relationship is run by fear, then that relationship is full of obligation. I have to. And if I have to, you have to. And if we have to, then we'll suffer. We have expectations that get unfulfilled. And when you have an unfulfilled expectation, as Joanne said earlier, you're left being upset. When your expectations are not met, you're hurt. Fear-based relationships hurt. They're not fair. You blame each other. There's no real respect. Nobody has honor. And by honor, I do mean a deep regard for, a deep respect for. Nothing gets respected when it's fear-driven. It's one or the other always trying to gain control. And then it comes down to their pity. People become full of pity. They feel sorry for somebody. And I'm going to tell you something. Feeling sorry for somebody is a very low way of being with anybody. It's disgusting. And I know for a lot of people, they think when you feel sorry for somebody, it's you being good for them. And you're not. You be that whoever's around you is capable. And you don't have to feel sorry for them. You can support them, enable them. You can give them whatever they need to be empowered and love them. But to feel sorry for them is tragic. A fear-based relationship is unkind, and it's full of victimization. Jealousy will come to the surface, selfishness, and a fear-based relationship is full of conditions. I will love you if. I will love you if I can control you. I will love you if you do as I want, the way I want you to do it. I will love you if you're good to me the way I think good to me looks. I will love you if you fit the image that I made up for you. A fear-based relationship makes somebody pay for one mistake over and over again. There's no justice. A love-based relationship, there is no obligation. I do what I do because I want to. And if you do because you want to, it's a pleasure for me. A pure love-based relationship has no expectations. We do what we want to do, and it's not personal. A love-based relationship does not hurt. Whatever happens, it fits and is okay because we have a deep respect and honor for each other and for the union. We have a deep honor and respect for life. I know that you're strong enough and that you'll make it. I know you can handle anything and that I become the mirror for you to look in, that you get your strength back. Love is ruthless. By ruthless, I mean it does not pity, it doesn't feel sorry, but love has compassion. And compassion, not as a definition, but as a distinction, is the willingness to be with someone as they go through the spaces in life that you've already mastered. A love-based relationship is completely responsible. I'm completely responsible for the whole of it. A love-based relationship is kind and generous, and it's unconditional. There is no if. I love you because I love you. I love you because I said I love you. I love you, and it's unconditional, and if there's a mistake, you pay only once. So take a look at your own relationships, you guys, and be straight with yourself, not to make yourself wrong and not to make the relationship wrong, but you want to look. How much do you or the other use fear to domesticate the partnership? You see, at any one time, one partner needs more love than the other. In a healthy relationship, this changes back and forth regularly. But guys, in most relationships, this is mostly not the case. And the one who needs less dominates the other, creating a kind of power over the other, and this becomes the existence of the partnership. The couple cannot progress without getting this healed. And I know for a fact that there are many of you on this call and many people that you know who are not on this call, that their relationships are ruled by fear and that one partner in the couple dominates the other. I invite you to invite them to be on the call so that they can examine the kind of life they've built for themselves and that they can have a breakthrough. I invite you to examine and to have a breakthrough. I am interested in participating with you any way I can to make that happen. Because you see, my success is knowing how many of you have more power, more freedom, more peace, more expression of love, more experience of love, more expansion of love because of the work that we did together. See, this action, when this relationship happens, by the way, we automatically go to the one who dominates as the wrong one. And I want you to get, this is a dance. Just because one dominates and looks like the bad guy, this is not true. You see, the relationship that turns into this, it's likely connected to a deep emotional bruise in both partners, and they're both infected. And when you're stuck here, power becomes more important than love. I'm going to give you an opportunity to share. And I've unmuted the phone. So let me hear what you're present to, what you're going through. I want to acknowledge it is like 1 minute till 7, and I have about 10 minutes to go. And what we have to go is critical, and I don't want to end the call without doing that. So I hope that you're able to stay for the extra time to make it through.
Leonard?
But anyway, I want to hear from some of you. What are you present to?
Leonard?
What are you seeing? Yes, who was that? Sorry.
Leonard?
Leonard? Yeah, Leonard,
yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Thomas, you were right. I know a couple that is just like what you described, where one dominates the other through fear of well, I'm not attracted to you anymore because you're not the man that I married and blah blah blah. And I immediately went to the one party until what you said made me present to. It's a dance.
Yes.
You know,
so
like
just because
I really got that.
Just because one needs more love than the other doesn't make them not a participant in this equation.
Right.
And I don't see it, but by the way, now that I said that, Leonard, I also want to express I don't want to make either one of them wrong. They're stuck in a position, and they don't see a way out. They authentically love the other person. It's an authentic kind of love, but they have no way of getting access to its fullest expression. And that's what we're here for. That's what we're developing this for. That's what the game that I put in place is for. It's for those people. And I'll tell you what I'd much rather have. I'd much rather have couples who are new. It's so sad because the couples who are new are so drugged up on dopamine and oxytocin from their brains that they don't see the possibility of doing this kind of groundwork. But can you imagine if I could get these couples like this, like early on, and get this work done early on, the kind of world they could create for themselves?
Yeah.
It's amazing. Anybody else?
Yeah.
What are you present to?
Tom?
Would you like to share?
Tom?
You might have to say it louder because I can't hear you.
Hey, Tom, can you hear me? It's Kelly.
Yeah, Kelly, go ahead.
I noticed that even you were talking about, what true love is, and I noticed that even in the background as a human being, I'm so resigned that this type of love is possible. And I've only ever had one relationship in my entire life, and it was great, but I'm still resigned to how in the world can you even meet somebody who you can start off this type of understanding with, that you both got wounded when you were little, and how in the world can this be possible? So my human being being resigned is there, sort of.
Your human being resigned. That's the last thing
Yeah.
I heard.
Yeah. I'm saying that even I noticed that there's even a being resigned that this type of love is even possible. Because I'm not sure.
I got it.
Yeah.
So then you settle.
Yeah.
And then you settle. Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. I don't think there's anybody who hasn't at some point settled or thought they settled or were unwilling to do the work to get beyond having settled. So that's really great. Thanks, Kelly. Anybody else?
One way I can see, Thomas, is to stay on calls like this and get the other person on calls like this, so both people are present to what's possible. Just my 2 cents.
That helps. And what my experience has been is, if one's on the call, rarely can they get the other on the call, but usually they can get the other to at least have a conversation. And sometimes the three of us having a conversation can move the thing forward and get it where it needs to go. All right, so now I want to move into the last part of the call, and that is healing yourself, loving yourself. How do we bring healing to this whole thing so that you get more of who you really are present? So I've muted the phone. That's why there's a few seconds of interlude. Every time I mute, it takes a second or two. First of all, earlier I asked you to write it down if you're taking notes, that by your reactions, you will reveal the emotional bruise that you're dealing with. So what I want you to do between this call and the next call, I'm going to give you some coursework. I want you to notice your reactions, and I want you to hone in on the one that shows up most consistent in your relationship. You're going to find there's one that dominates, and it's usually connected to the deepest bruise. So you distinguish the bruise, and if you can get to what happened, that's a great thing. It makes it more fun, but you don't have to do that. See, some people can't see what happened. It doesn't negate the fact. It did happen, and there is a bruise there regardless if you can see what happened or not. For some people, they protected themselves early on by not having to see it. What did you make up about yourself? The self-image that you've created. These are good just to have in front of you and look at. And then how you bring healing is, number one, you forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for what? Forgive yourself for having the reactions. Forgive yourself for blaming the partner for your reactions. Forgive yourself, number one, for having this self-image that constantly reminds you that you're not enough. Forgive yourself for your humanity. So number one is forgive yourself. Whatever it takes, forgive yourself. Number two, forgive others. Forgive anybody who participated. In many cases, when I look back at my initial bruise, I was about 4 years old, and it was an interaction with my dad. And, as I was looking at this work and I forgave myself, I was looking at forgiving my dad. And it really became easy to forgive my dad when I realized I was about 4, my dad was 22. Now think about that. 22-year-old dad. There's a lot of things that 22-year-olds do that I can't imagine could ever be connected to being a dad. So, I forgave my dad for being a 22-year-old, trying to do the best he could do with the knowledge that he had at the time. He only had what he had. So I forgave my dad. And then you got to forgive those people around you that keep hitting that bruise. In most cases, they don't hit it on purpose, except in relationships dominated by fear. Then a lot of times not just the domineering one, but the weaker one will notice the bruise, and they don't distinguish it as a bruise, but they notice there's a reaction there, and they poke it. And that's how they win. That's how they gain power, if you will. All right, so forgive yourself, forgive others. Then there's number 3. This is a big one, and I hope you're writing these down. Give up the right to ever use it again on yourself or anybody else. Now, this one is a big one, and it will segue into our next call. So I'm laying a little groundwork for our next call, and I'm giving you something now to look forward to and to get in this moment. There's a lot of you on this call who I've done a lot of work with personally. Thank you for the privilege that it's been to interact with you, to grow with you, to develop with you, and to put some of these distinctions in place. If you say, I will never use this on myself or anyone else again, and your word is weak, do you think you have much of a chance in keeping that in existence?
No.
Not at all. So for those of you who may have questioned in the past our practices for integrity, see, first of all, let's talk about what is integrity that I'm talking about, because I'm certainly not talking about morality. When you talk about integrity in the everyday, ordinary meaning of the word integrity, most people think it like being good, being bad. If I have a lot of integrity, I'm a really good person. And if I don't have a lot of integrity, I'm a really bad person. How many of you know what I'm talking about?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's not what I mean by integrity. So what do I mean? Well, if you can think of a table being a table, and the table has a flat surface on top, and it has 4 legs, it's stable, I can sit things on it, it has integrity as a table. It works as a table. The only thing it takes to bring integrity to that table is if a leg breaks off, I put the leg back on. So integrity for a human being is a little different because how we have the kind of integrity for workability, for power, for freedom, for self-expression, like a table, is we have to deal with three very specific things. Number one, we have to honor our word. You got to have that what you say becomes more powerful than your circumstances, more powerful than your thoughts, and more powerful than your feelings. Your word has to get strong, and nothing gets strong without exercise. So how do you get your word strong? Well, you exercise very easy things, like being on time. If you practice being on time, your word naturally, automatically gets stronger. That's just from practicing being on time. Listen, we live in a culture where being 5, 10, 15 minutes late is fine. So it's not like I'm being on time so I can be a good guy and so that people appreciate and respect me. They might appreciate and respect you, but mostly people are late, so they'll probably just be pissed off at you. You know, at my job, one of the managers calls me Mr. Punctuality, and it's not, what do you call it? He's not making a nice cut. It's not a compliment. That's the word. It's not a compliment. He's kind of making fun of me because I'm always the first one there. I'm always a few minutes early. But you see, what I have that he doesn't have is a practice that strengthens my word. I don't make him wrong. Listen, I don't care. They can get there when they want. The only people that I deal with when they're late are the people I'm coaching. Why do I deal with them when they're late? Because I want their word to be strong, because if their word's strong, they're going to get results out of our working together, and I get paid for results. I don't get paid just to talk to people. So therefore, I want to make sure there's results, so I'm going to put that in. The second thing, which is also critical to having your word get developed with more power, more freedom, and that is simply to do what you say you're going to do when you said you would do it. Now, sometimes, you know, if you're busy people and you got a lot going on, you can't do what you said you would do when you said you would do it. Stuff comes up. Maybe you have a little car accident, or maybe you have an emergency and you're on the phone. You know, there are a lot of things. You don't resort to the excuse. You simply go to whomever you made the promise with, and you clean it up. You say, I didn't do what I said I would do when I said I would do it, and I want to clean that up. That has as much integrity, you guys, as having done it anyway, as long as the intention, of course, was always to do it. Does that communicate?
Yes. Yes.
Everybody's good?
Yes.
Next call, we're going to talk about, see, right now we're in stage 4, the brain sinking stage. For the brain sinking stage to be powerful, one has to heal themselves and be the reflection of who they really are, so their partner can heal themselves also, so that life energy and pure love become the dominating factor in the relationship. And remember, you only have access to that when you practice being right here, right now. The next call, we're going to continue with stage 4 and a little of stage 5, and we're going to deal with agreements and real integrity. And we'll continue with how we're going to get real healing to happen with individuals. So here's the coursework. Notice your reactions and hone in on the one that shows up most consistent in your relationship. Email me. Here's the new email address. It's easy. cyclicalstagesoflove@gmail.com. cyclicalstagesoflove@gmail.com. I want you to email me what you see. Email me the reaction you saw. You might email me the story that you see that's connected to. You might want to tell me more than that. I'm willing to read whatever you have to write, but I want to know about that the first bruise, the deepest bruise. So I'm unmuting so we can complete together. and I want to give a couple of you an opportunity to share what you got out of being on the call. Who'd like to share what you got out of being on tonight's call?
This is Sandy Rocco.
Hey, Sandy. Good to hear your voice.
Hi, yeah. So yesterday was 1 month since my mom passed away. And I'm not crying because I'm sad. I'm really present to, I have lived my entire life not feeling good enough because I made up that my mom pushed me because I wasn't good enough. And so I'm just really present to in forgiving myself and others that I am good enough, that my mom kept pushing me, not because she didn't love me and accept me, but she did this in part because she couldn't skate or dance or walk. For the past 16 years of her life, she was disabled in a wheelchair. And she pushed me as a child when she was healthy and able. She pushed me because she believed in me.
Yeah. That's really great, Sandy. I do want to put in one thing. I appreciate what you shared. It's really awesome. The only thing I want to put in is that you said it wasn't because I wasn't good enough, because I am good enough. What I want to say about that for everybody, it's not about being good enough or not being good enough, because pure love has nothing to do with being good enough or not good enough, right?
Right.
You get that, Sandy?
Yeah.
And that's who you really are. So not a correction, just a step up from where you already are. You get that?
Right. But
beautiful.
You could see how that was, quote unquote, my bruise.
Yeah, right. I get it. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Sandy. Anybody else? What did you get out of being on the call?
Charlie?
Yeah, Charlie.
I just want to thank you and acknowledge you for like an awesome, empowering context to come from. And what I got is I become the mirror you look into to get your strength back.
Yeah.
And I want to say that that's sourced by unconditional love.
Fantastic. Thanks, Charlie. It's really good.
Thank you.
Somebody else? What did you get out of being on the call?
Barry.
Yeah, Barry. Euclid.
Hi there. I got the incredible beauty of the distinctions you're giving as being in alignment with my best understanding of holy relationship. It's so freaking beautiful. I mean, it's just like I'm looking at a blueprint. It's beautiful.
Awesome. Euclid, thank you. Thank you very much. It's a great honor to hear that from you, really. Anybody else?
Lauren?
Yeah, Lauren.
Lauren? Hey.
Yes. Hi.
So this is hi. I'm so pleased to be on this call. This is the first call that I've been on. And,
welcome.
I have to, thank you so much. And, I'm really looking at how cynical I am. And I can see why. Now I can see why. We're doing this dance with thinking magically that things are going to work, in addition to all the patterns I learned from my parents that didn't work, that I think I'm supposed to mirror. And, I find my things.
Uh-oh, you're disappearing.
Breaking up.
Well, I will say, Lauren, we love to hear your voice, and the share started off really good, but now it's gone. Somebody else?
All right.
Hey, Tom?
Oh, yes.
Hi.
Don't call my name. Say your name.
Hi, this is Kelly.
Hey, Kelly.
Hey. So what I got is being able to have compassion for the fact that people have brain patterns that don't work for them. They have a lot of stuff that doesn't work for them, and they don't even know things that they don't know. Like, they don't even have a clue that they're reacting for some type of reason that they're not present to. And I've had a lot of anger about that. Like, I've almost had a lot of, why the hell do I have to, be in this world that's so damn untransformed, and maybe things really, like, I've had anger. Like, I've almost had this, yeah. So I'm I'm practicing being more compassionate with nobody comes into this world with a manual on how to be a human being and how to have a great life.
That's right. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's 7:15. Thank you for sharing, Kelly. It was awesome. Thank you, everybody, for your contribution. Please invite people to the next call, which will be March 16th. And really, I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much for being in my life. And I will talk to you in between, and I will see you at the next call. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Bye, Thomas.
Good night.
Hello?